The days after their quiet reunion seemed to blur together, fragile yet full of unspoken hope. June woke each morning with a strange lightness in his chest, as though the years of emptiness had finally given way to something whole. But life, with its cruel precision, rarely allowed happiness to linger unchallenged. One late afternoon, as June prepared prints for an upcoming exhibition, a project that critics had already begun calling his most ambitious, his phone buzzed with a call he almost ignored. The number was unfamiliar, yet something in his gut urged him to answer. The voice on the other end was calm, official, but every word struck him like a hammer. His father had collapsed at work, rushed to the hospital, condition uncertain. The world seemed to tilt, the air thinning around him. Memories of his father's stern voice, his relentless expectations, his silent pride flashed before him, tangled with guilt that he had been too distant for too long. Dropping everything, he rushed to the hospital, each step a battle against the rising tide of dread. The sterile corridors, the cold scent of antiseptic, the sight of his mother hunched in the waiting area, all of it carved into him deeper than any photograph could capture. His mother's eyes were red but steady, her voice trembling as she explained. Years of stress, overwork, and hidden health issues had caught up with his father. The man who had always stood unshaken now lay in a hospital bed, wires and monitors tracing the fragility of his existence. June felt the ground slipping beneath him. He had always fought for his art, his independence, pushing back against his father's vision of a stable, conventional career. And now, as he stared at the pale figure before him, regret consumed him. Regret for every harsh word, every moment of defiance, every unspoken gratitude he had withheld. Soo-yeon rushed to his side when she heard the news, her presence soft but grounding, her hands slipping into his as if to remind him that he was not alone in this storm. Yet even her touch could not erase the heaviness pressing against his chest. The doctor spoke of long recoveries, lifestyle changes, financial strains, and suddenly the dreams he had been clinging to seemed fragile against the weight of responsibility. His father's condition was not just a medical crisis. It was a fracture in the foundation of his life, a reminder that love and duty often pulled in opposite directions. For days he barely slept, dividing his hours between the hospital and his studio, trying to maintain the facade of a career still on track while the shadow of uncertainty loomed over him. His critics, blind to his turmoil, continued to demand appearances, deadlines, and performances. But behind the camera, his hands sometimes trembled, his focus slipping as images blurred into reflections of his own fear. The sudden twist had turned his world into a delicate balance between hope and despair, between the son who had always wanted freedom and the man who could no longer ignore the fragile humanity of the father who had once seemed invincible. And through it all, Soo-yeon watched him with quiet worry, knowing that this was the kind of storm that could either break them apart or bind them together in ways neither had imagined. The days after the storm passed quietly, but beneath the surface, invisible waves of change had begun to stir. Soo-yeon's parents sat together in the living room one evening, the tension between them lingering like an old shadow. They had built their entire lives on stability, on reputation, on ensuring that their daughter would never have to struggle the way they once did. Every decision, every word of disapproval toward June had come from a place they believed was love, a shield meant to protect their daughter from hardship. Yet in recent days, Soo-yeon's distant eyes and the fragile tremor in her voice had unsettled them more than any threat to their family status ever could. For the first time, they began to question whether their desire to control her future had stolen away the very happiness they were so desperate to secure. She used to smile at the smallest things, her mother whispered, her voice breaking as she looked at an old photograph of Soo-yeon as a child, laughing with unrestrained joy. But now, even when she's in the room with us, it feels like she's already gone. Her father, usually stern and unyielding, sat silently for a long time, the weight of her words pressing into his chest. He had told himself that June could never provide the life they wanted for their daughter. No financial certainty, no social recognition, nothing but uncertainty. But then he thought of Soo-yeon's tired eyes, the way she seemed to fold in on herself whenever marriage was brought up, and for the first time in years, doubt crept in. They had always admired Soo-yeon's grace, her quiet strength, but they had also felt the weight of society's expectations pressing down on them.